The Boys AT Rifle. This is a brand new recon class weapon available with the latest Tides of War content for Battlefield 5. And it's certainly a unique weapon. It's actually in a new category for the recon class as anti-material rifle. It was originally designed as an anti-tank rifle. However, the caliber of the round was really only effective against lightly armored targets. And later in the war, World War II, it was phased out for stronger weapons like the Bipod that could actually do some damage to heavier armored targets. And in Battlefield 5, its performance is reflected, well, for the most part, I'd say probably accurately. It does not do very much damage to tanks. Lightly armored tanks you can do, 15, 17 damage a hit on them sometimes. But if you're going for medium or heavy tank, I honestly wouldn't bother with this weapon. A critical hit will net you like 5 damage, where glancing blows can get you 1 damage. So it's practically not worth it going after tanks in general with this gun. Although there is an upgrade for this weapon that gives you better armor piercing rounds. However, at the time of making this review, it is bugged. I don't know if DICE will fix this in the near future, and maybe the AP rounds will be a decent upgrade that make it far more effective at hitting armor. But at this time, it's really not a weapon I would recommend if you're planning on making a recon class designed to fight tanks. So if you're not fighting tanks, then you're fighting infantry. This weapon can one-shot kill infantry at up to 100 meters away. That's with a body shot. So you don't have to get the headshot to get the one-shot kill. You can body shot at 100 meters away, which is very impressive. The downside, of course, is if you hit a limb, like a leg or an arm, you won't be doing that 100 damage. As soon as you pass that 100 meter mark, you're going to be going into the high 70s in terms of your damage. So if your opponents are hurt for like 25 damage and you hit them beyond 100 meters, there's a still pretty good chance you're going to get that one-shot kill. The other caveat here, and this is a massive one, you pretty much have to be bipoded to get any sort of accurate fire from this weapon. It performs very similar to an MMG in that if you right click while standing up, non-bipoded, you will get a slight zoom in, but you will not be aiming down sights. This will give you slightly more accurate hip fire, but it's still going to be pretty darn inaccurate overall. And so really, to get any sort of consistency with this weapon, you need to deploy the bipod and then aim down sights. And that's a big caveat because, well, for one, the bipod mechanics in Battlefield 5 are really bad. Even despite DICE already doing a pass on the bipod gameplay, it's still terrible. It's clunky, it takes time, it's cumbersome, and a lot of the time you're just sitting there waiting to try and ADS, or you're trying to get your weapon to aim down sight over a barrel or a ledge or something that you feel like the weapon should be bipoding or deploying on, and it's just not, which makes it very frustrating to use in any sort of non-campy situation. And hell, even in campy situations, it can be frustrating. I was prone on a flat street, but I was near a sidewalk edge, and the weapon kept unzooming and resuming and unzooming and resuming. And I mean, that's just about as flat as you can get in a Battlefield game, and it was still having trouble staying deployed. So, in my opinion, I don't think DICE should be making any weapons that incorporate bipod gameplay as a main feature of their functionality right now, because their bipod mechanics are still complete and utter garbage. So, with that being said, of course, I went ahead and started playing with this gun, trying to rank it up and just muscling through the painful bipod mechanics of this gun and trying to see how I could make it effective, and if it was actually so good that it doesn't matter if it's reliant on crummy bipod mechanics. The one-shot kill is that effective, that good to use. Now, it's important to understand some of the stats with this weapon before you get into it. Long-range shots are going to be hard. At base, it shoots at 400 meter per second muzzle velocity, significantly slower than any of the other recon bolt-action rifles. This means hitting moving targets is going to be very difficult, and there's going to be a lot of bullet drop at further range targets, which actually will be an issue, especially for, like, say, trying to hit a tank gunner across a field or something like that. It's going to be hard to compensate for that. So you have to keep that in mind. When you fully upgrade this and choose the faster muzzle velocity upgrade at the end instead of the armor-piercing rounds, because the armor-piercing rounds are broken at the moment, you will get 460 muzzle velocity speed, which means a slightly less bullet drop and slightly less lead time requirement. It doesn't mean that that's going to make this an easy-to-use weapon for hitting moving targets at further ranges. And that's really hard, especially when you're in a sniper duel, because any decent sniper is going to be taking a shot and moving around a lot, not giving you a stationary target. So it's going to feel a lot like the chance of your shots hitting a good sniper are going to be largely based on chance, trying to anticipate where they're going to peak, shooting where you think they'll be, and hoping that they don't change their trajectory. So that is the frustrating part of using this weapon. The fun part of using this weapon is getting those one-shot body shots on players. And I would say like 50 to 70 meters feels kind of like the sweet spot, in a sense where you're not far enough away where the muzzle velocity is affecting the performance too poorly, so you can hit your shots more consistently. And at that point, the gun does feel pretty cool. Now, of course, you have the bipod problem of needing a place to set up, and trying to play this aggressively is very painful because the setup time with a bipod is so lengthy in this that you can't really play bipod weapons aggressively in Battlefield. You have to play defensively and camp or sneak around and get into a position where you just don't have to move. But the other problem is that it has a very, very, very slow rate of fire. Now, you can upgrade the rate of fire with the progression tree, which I would recommend doing, but at base it's got 22 round per minute rate of fire, and upgrade you've only got 25 round per minute rate of fire, which means taking another shot is going to be so slow. And if you take a shot at a target and miss, well, say goodbye. Like, you better be the world's best pistol user and have really fast ability to switch to that pistol, which is why I recommend the slings and swivels upgrade on the progression tree. But even so, you're in a pickle. This is a tricky weapon to use in place of your primary weapon. And I've already seen a bunch of people talking about this, and I myself tend to agree. I'm not really sure why this weapon was added as a replacement for a primary. It's that difficult to use, and it feels much more like a gadget slot weapon. And I think that would be kind of interesting if you could have a recon class that had the boys AT rifle as a potential gadget slot weapon, something where they could more regularly carry an anti-vehicle type weapon with them. That would be cool, and just use their normal bolt action for engaging infantry. Because I feel in almost every scenario, I would rather have a bolt action rifle than this. The one shot body shot kill is cool. It's a little bit gimmicky, but the requirement of the bipod for it and the crappy bipod mechanics associated with it, plus the super slow muzzle velocity, it just makes this a really difficult weapon to use. It reminds me of how, like, you know, the Martini Henry in Battlefield 1 was a cool weapon. You had to get used to the muzzle velocity, but it had that sweet spot. Once you got used to that sweet spot, you could be super aggressive and effective with it. You didn't have to bipod the weapon, and they had a one-shot kill gun that worked in that game, that wasn't overpowered and wasn't painful to use, basically. But because this one is locked behind the bipod requirement, the joy of getting those one-shot kills just kind of gets sucked away to an extent. You're also super limited, I would say, in terms of what game modes you're going to be effective with this gun. Defensive on a breakthrough mode is probably your best bet, and even then, the map specifics are going to probably play a decent role. The best clips I have of this gun are where my opponents just don't realize where I am, and I'm able to get a bunch of one-shot kills with it. But that goes for just about any gun in Battlefield. If my opponents don't know where I am and I'm shooting at them, then great, I can get all those kills, no problem. But if they know where I am, then the boys AT rifle is a rough weapon to have. Sure, it adds a bit of variety to the recon class, but not good variety. I think switching this to a gadget slot would be a good step in the right direction. I think fixing the bipod mechanics or doing a complete bipod overhaul for Battlefield 5 would change up a lot of weapons in this game, and probably for the better. So it might make this more usable or more enjoyable if you could have faster deployment on ledges and railings and windowsills and that kind of thing. So until that happens, I can't really recommend the boys AT rifle. Everybody seems to be using it right now, but it is quite a bit of cheese and not a lot of skill. As always, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this weapon review, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.